And here we are. Welcome everyone to the code review group meeting for July 10th. Andre, you can
Yes, I
kick
have
us
a point.
off.
Um, oops. Okay, so yeah, there's some folks that are interested in refactoring notes or comments, however you want to call it, in the commits pages, which is those neighbors over there in source code. However, one of the things we noticed is it's probably going to need some work on the back end to ensure that there's a discussions JSON endpoint there, which is a bit of an overlap with the rapid diffs need that we're going to have anyway. Um, so this is for so that we can so we can reuse the front end app that we already have. So we just would migrate the app or just allow that app to run over there. The question here is just whether we'll be able to provide support there from code review backend anytime soon. And we have experience with it, but it also overlaps a bit with rapid diff unification of APIs discussion. So that's sort of the question I had, or should we pass it on to someone else? And first, I have a question.
Yes, I've added yet another question as well. I'll start with the first one was like I was curious about the goal of the refactor, and I feel like we recently discussed that we weren't sure what comments on commits were actually useful for. And so I'm just now if someone talks about refactoring, I'm like, what is that really
Yeah,
needed? Like so I just wasn't sure anymore.
that's a very fair question. So it started as someone flagging it as outdated UI.
Fair.
Then, sorry.
That's fair. I said sorry.
Yeah, it's fair. Then someone from Plan Knowledge, Himanshu, mentioned they are trying to spread their rich text editor across all Markdown editors in GitLab. And this is hard to do on the old code base because it's outdated code or whatever. So this refactor would help them achieve that goal. That's the goal they have for quarter two. Also, this also includes the snippets, but that's not as relevant to us. I don't think we can help much there because it's a different endpoint, I think. Um, so yes, so that's the extent of the context on what's needed. What I told them already was that this will be replaced by the rapid diffs when the rapid diffs ship. So essentially, the commits page will now render a rapid diffs app that will have the code, the comments included in that app. So I told them we don't have a timeline, and since you don't have a timeline, they kind of thought, all right, maybe we can go ahead and refactor it ourselves anyway. I'm like, sure, but at least
Uh-huh.
loop us in. So we're going to stay in touch with how the refactor will go on with the front end, but since we kind of flagged that this would be a necessity that we'll have to cover on the back end, I thought I'd ask here to check what sort of expectations I should set with them.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. Um, okay. I mean, that's fine. I'm still not super convinced they've just from this limited knowledge I have now of this that they should go ahead with that. But I mean, if they want to, that's fine. I guess my next question was what support they actually want from us. Is it for us to add that endpoint, like to do work there, or is it more like guiding or supporting their work or something like that? And yeah.
So I I don't know if they have backend engineers themselves. What I know is whether backend and frontend would need our guidance, at least in that support, so that it aligns with what we need for the future. So essentially, um, we are going to need a discussions endpoint on the commits page, period, to get the notes for the commit.
Hmm.
So if we can do that now and reuse that for the context of rapid diffs, great. So at least some guidance would be necessary if they are implementing things themselves on the back end. If we're implementing it ourselves, then it's just implement the endpoint and be done with it. So I think.
Gotcha. Um,
Yes.
well, that does paint a slightly different picture if we know that we're going to need to implement that endpoint anyway. Like, as in, we will want to do it as part of rapid divs, right?
For the back end, yes. The front end, the effort will be throwaway. I already
Right.
mentioned that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, gotcha. Well, that's interesting.
I
I
don't
don't
have
know.
timelines. I think the expectation is to work on 17.4, 5, or 6 on this. So it's kind of like upcoming. But yeah.
Okay, because you mentioned Q2, I thought that was because that's
Oh,
like end of
sorry.
3 weeks.
That was the goal that Plan Knowledge had for Q2, which I don't think they'll achieve. So I think they'll probably just slip it to quarter three.
Okay, I see. Okay, well, sounds like uh I would put just Gary on the spot now to see what he thinks is an effort involved here. But if it's a rapid diff things, I don't know that Gary, like not that it's a thing, but like if that estimation needs to take into account rapid diffs considerations, maybe that would be challenging, but I don't know. Um,
I haven't really worked on rapid diffs much, so I have no idea.
okay.
So just to translate a bit the needs here, we have a discussions endpoint in the MRs. And what we've been talking about is if everywhere we're going to need so we're going to need some discussions like endpoint for rapid diffs anyway. So the idea is we don't want to refactor notes ourselves. We don't want to rewrite the notes app ourselves. We're just going to be reusing what already exists. So wherever the rapid diffs exist, a discussions like endpoint will probably have to exist. What we need on the back end is a port of discussions JSON or making that available on a public API centralized point that we can reuse wherever the page is in, right? We just have to pass the type of object we're commenting on and then get all the discussions that are relevant to that object. That's why I think it's related to rapid diffs. But in this case, if it's just easier to just copy paste, just make the endpoint available on the commits, and in that page it only references the commit that it's in. So whatever is easiest for the backend at this point, I think that there's a bit of an overlap, but I delegate that to all of you in the backend to see what's the best approach there.
I think if you're just moving around JSON files and like the things they're attached to, it's pretty easy. But making another endpoint might get a little more complicated.
Sure.
Gotcha.
What I think could be useful to sync up with folks in rapid diffs, or I mean Patrick or something.
Yeah.
Is the what happens when we need a third page? We're going to do another copy paste, or should we start talking about moving some things to REST API that provide us the discussions in? So probably already exists, but we're not using it on the MR. If the path forward is to use something on the public API, then potentially we could start right away in doing this endpoint there, and then have that front end app pulled from there. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
I'll
I
make sure
think
that I'll make sure there's an issue asking
cool.
for these things.
Thank you. Yeah.
But from the starting of the conversation, it feels like it's not a hard no. We might look into it.
Yeah, I think it sounds like if they want to work on this 17.4.5, we could spend some time in 17.3 just to look at this and refine and understand what we would want to do if we want to do it, and then that will help make that decision, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll connect with them and see what they expect. I expect them to be trying to rush it, but they probably haven't done any scoping out of what needs to be done anyway. So 17.3 is going to have to be a spike time for them anyway. So
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, I'm still like, we can move on after this, but like I would still go back to the initial question of like I think it's fine to set the goal that they want to get this editor everywhere, but again, like what's the usage of comments on commits? Like it's really so important. Like I would really challenge this, but I understand this obviously ultimately it's their thing to
I went
decide,
and
but
check.
it's
I went and
surprising.
checked with the competition to see if they still had this feature even. They do, so it still exists. I think I theorize that there's still some value of like you have a commit you want to discuss with somebody, you throw some comments on it, then you share the link to that commit with somebody, so those comments are there. But it's like you could do that in an MR also, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's a good question. We that's why I don't think it's worth us dedicating a lot of our time to refactor the commits ourselves, the refactor the notes on commits ourselves outside of the rapid diffs context. We'll do that in rapid diffs, but that's sort of like a toggle turn on and
Yeah.
turn off.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll
So
keep
yeah,
posted.
we'll be on the lookout for the issue and then
Yeah.
take it from there. Thanks.
Awesome. Then the next is just a sync. So I'll
Yes.
just move it. Ben, you have the next point.
Yeah, just since we haven't met in a while, I'm curious if there's any UX research needed for Duo related features. I have clearance to sort of rush stuff off my schedule if it's Duo acceleration related. So it's your opportunity to grab some of my time if you need it.
So remember we started this issue for the Duo code review a while back, and back then I think we were waiting to have a first sort of experiment version of this ready, I guess. So since then we have made progress, like the feature exists and some of us have it like enabled for our user and we can use it and stuff. I don't think it's necessarily ready to actually proceed with this solution validation stuff, or I guess it depends what's involved there really. But at least this, in terms of, you asking about Duo related features that could need attention, I think that would be the first one that comes to mind at least. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, I leave it up to you. If you think it's too early, that's totally fine. Just make sure to tag me when you think it's ready.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure, honestly. I think I'd be curious to see what Kai thinks about that. Just because I'm not that familiar with this process anyway, this aspect of the feature building. So yeah.
Cool.
All right. I'll just put a note to like ping Kai about this, see what he thinks the next time. Amy, you have the next one?
Yeah, I touched all the files in the CLI project and I broke all the front end tests. They're fixed now. So I have been meaning to do a top to bottom cleanup ever since we took on this project and just never got around to it because I knew it was going to break all the front end tests. But I got 2 free days and now it's done. So yay.
Nice.
I can see the excitement in somebody's closing an issue and they write it in all caps.
Yeah.
It is done and this issue can't close.
Die.
Good job. Good job.
Then Ben, you're next.
Yep. This is random and not necessarily related to this group, but I didn't get an answer when I asked in the data channel. But I'm curious if any of you know a way to see like a distribution of API made by external users, somebody who wrote their own script to do that, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I can try to explain better.
I tried looking at this recently. Are you asking, you're trying to figure out which are the API endpoints that are being used externally specifically, right? To know which. So I was trying to figure out the exact same thing for this documentation thing that I've been doing, which is like the API documentation, because there's a lot of it and I'm lazy, or rather efficient. I wanted to sort them by like, which is the one that people actually use that actually need documentation, therefore. And I didn't manage to, I managed to sort like rank them by, like to find the right dashboard that ranks them by usage, but it didn't sort of discriminate between external versus internal. So I don't have that, but it's at least something that, yeah, like let's say if you assume internal or external usage is the same, which it's not, I'm pretty sure it's not, to be honest. But yeah, so I don't know, but I feel like there should be a way to do that still. I just didn't find it yet. Yeah.
Was that dashboard in Tableau or did you write it from scratch?
No, it was in Grafana.
Oh.
Yes. Let me send you a link. Where is it? Trying to find my issue now. Okay, there we go. So, so this is a list of endpoints. It's not all of them, but it's the one I was looking at for the for the documentation. This is the Grafana dashboard. So that one will be the Grafana dashboard will have all of the endpoints related to code review ordered by request rate, API request rate. But again, it's not going to give you the internal versus external breakdown.
Oh, that's still helpful.
So, and yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with Grafana, but you can scroll down there and then there's like a table version of it. So there's the, graphical version of it. And then if you scroll down, there's a table and you can click on like average to sort it by descending average. And then you'll just get the ordered list this way. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Right. Anything else?
Nope. Except, hey, Carrie, you're just in time for the end of the meeting.
I made it. I'm here.
Welcome.
All right.
Good to see
Cool.
everybody.
Thank you, folks.